Well, welcome to Bases at the Barge, which wasn't at the Barge, it was the Coronation Hall. That's because last year, when we had Bases at the Barge, there were too many people and I had to phone a lot of people up and tell them, please don't come, it's too popular. Now, the whole point of the Bases at the Barge is to have a small audience to meet and ask questions with Bases witnesses who've either given testimony in one form or another through one channel or another. On this occasion, it was colleagues or co-program participants of James Casbolt, and that is Max Spears and Sarah Adams. Sarah's from the United States and Max is from the UK, and Max is part of the same sort of batch of children that James Casbolt was. Now, James Casbolt's story has gone very sad. He did a lot of bad things. He's been to court and he's currently not available to the general public anymore, shall we say. Now, Max and Sarah, this is because it's a sensitive thing for what they're going through. Max and Sarah started out together. Max helped Sarah answer a lot of questions, which is the whole point of this Bases at the Barge, so that people can ask questions. There were some very good ones. So first we'll have Max and Sarah, and then we will have Max himself, where he made a lot of very important statements. Again, this is very difficult for them to actually do this, so we're very appreciative that they're able to come forward, and it was such a success that we're going to have them at the international conference later on in the year. We had Danielle La Verite, who's a very controversial new kid on the block. Danielle admitted that she is part of a major Swiss banking, or I believe it's Swiss banking family. She's the rebellious kid in the family. So this is very important. The reason why I wanted Danielle to be there is because she has got very astute observational abilities which can cut to the chase on many issues. I know she's got a reputation for, swearing and all sorts of things like that. On this occasion, she, I think, only swore 3 times. Now, we were chased out of the building because there was double booking, a full screw up in fact, but we got a good deal of comment from Danielle, and we had a very good time afterwards. So in April 2015, this is Bases at the Barge at the Coronation Hall. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bases at the Barge, which is at the Coronation Hall. The last time I was here, I was shooting for Oh to Catch a Circle Maker. Circle Maker alert. And that was because there was a magnificent formation in the East Field here in 2007, and 2 of the artists who made it were briefly here to say hello, because it was man-made. But the photographer who was taking pictures of it at the time, and this is when it gets controversial, all his cameras went doolally at about 3:10 in the morning, at about 7 cameras, because there was a flash of energy, some kind of thing happened. And what we think happened was there was this time-space disruption event, because what happens with the circle makers is they're given the time it takes to make the circle. And when time joins the existing, our time zone, there's a discharge of energy, and that's what shafted his cameras. Now, the particles that were released when that happened were called attoton particles. And there was a lot of research done by the various agencies when that happened, and that's where the press conference was held here, and that's where I did my first DVD way back in 2007. And if you are careful, you will notice fluidic time distortion events happening. And one of those time distortion events was happening at Holborn Tube Station, because there was an ET base underneath Holborn Tube Station, deep, in a slightly different dimension. And they were abducting humans in the tube system. Well, that took a hit about 3 weeks ago, and there was a major fire in the middle of London, deep underground. 2,000 people had to be evacuated. And other observers had already noticed the fluidic space issues in that area, because we have a new kid on the block in terms of the ETs, and they're going to kick ass, and things are happening. And this affects the powers that be, and there's a lot of stuff beginning to happen, and this is going to be possibly what Max and Sarah are going to be talking about, related to today. So there's lots of connections about why we're here and what's happening. And it's very serious, because the existence of all duality in time, space, and all that is at threat. Because we have an anomaly here, according to some sources, and that anomaly has to be fixed. Otherwise, the related dimensions and sub-dimensions where other beings and people like the jinn and other ghosts and other dimensional demonic entities as well will all collapse and fall apart. And whatever that anomaly is here and needs fixing. But this has happened before. The difference is that the anomaly and the issues in connecting that anomaly and the relevant powers that be that have been exploiting that issue are going to incur penalties. Right? Okay, well that's a little bit of the oh my God stuff. So what we're now going to have is Miriam's part of the sort of basis crew clan, and she's an artist from Holland and knows some of the circle people in Holland, and they'll be having their stuff here as well. We've already had our first crop circle here in the Pewsey Valley. Not very good, I gather. So Miriam, if you could, the reason why we're doing this is so that other external agencies which may wish to cause trouble, it helps sort of release that issue. And if there are external agencies here, you leave your phaser cannons out the door, and we have nice things happening here. Okay, Miriam? And that's me. I'll do cameras and stuff from now on. We'll be having Sarah and Max together first, and then Sarah will do her thing. And the format of this is very relaxed, and if you want to ask questions or follow on subjects or ask details, do that. Okay, so Miriam, hello.
Right, just. That's a funny kind of concept. I'm used to big microphones. This is. I wasn't sure whether I was allowed to speak just for a brief moment, but I do that with pleasure because it's very important for the speakers to be able to speak out from their heart and feel safe here. And that's why I ask and I invite everybody to ground their energy as well as protect this whole space. So all the information that comes out today is safe for the speakers and for us to share. And especially because the times are really changing, really, really, really. I can sense it in all my bodies and even expanding more and more. That means that this kind of information will reach you in another way than it did before. That's why it's really an honor to have these speakers here today. But make sure that you're part of this whole conversation and make it a safe haven for them, for you, and for all mankind. Thank you.
Okay, you need to introduce yourself.
Okay, this is my first time speaking, by the way, so I'm going to do my best. My name is Sarah. I grew up half in France, half in the United States, and it's I had two different experiences because I got to experience the different things that happen in the United States, how it has a military program running that I was involved in, and also because my family is royal bloodline from France, how it was hacked and used for the goals of the United States that they wanted. So I'm going to try to explain my best all of this and the experiences that I had without getting too much anxiety. And hopefully, if I focus on Max.
So what I'm going to do is Sarah's going to speak, and then when certain things arise, I'll ask her questions, and so we'll do a back and forth like that.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's the best thing.
All right. So then you should probably. Where did you grow up? Where did you grow up? And then why did you move from France to the U.S.?
Okay, so
And how did you grow up?
it started in World War II. Right after World War II, I'm going to speak a bit about my mother because that's what ties in everything. Right after World War II, my mother, she was just a small child, and she was adopted by an American soldier, and he brought her to the United States. My mother is from a line of counts and countesses, so she's bloodline. The thing is that I believe she was taken from France because of her abilities and the bloodline she is, so that she could be used in a program. She grew up on Edwards Air Force Base partially, and she was brought everywhere. My adopted grandfather, or grandfather that adopted her, eventually became the security guard of President Reagan and his close friend. And my mom became an MP and stayed on some of the different bases in the United States. And she has some very strange marks on her, and I believe that she was used in testing too. Eventually, my mother kind of lost it. She has extreme psychic abilities, but she kind of just went off the brink. So she had me and my brothers and sisters, and I have 7 brothers and sisters. We were all closed up. We grew up pretty much in the wilderness. Partially when I was small in the United States, we grew up, so we connected to animals and different things like that.
So each brother and sister was from different.
Okay,
right?
so I believe that my mother may I believe my mother may have been used as a breeder, because my father is from a line of dukes, and each of my brothers and sisters have different fathers. And we weren't allowed to go to school or anything. We essentially grew up in the forest, and we chopped wood and all sorts of things. We were not allowed to really go into society at all. And my mom had it a bit military in the way that she raised us. We would all stand in a line, we would all stand to go shower. And then she also pushed us to our limits. She would wake us up and hose us down in the middle of the night in the snow. And it pushed me, I think, also to be able to become very, very strong in a way. And the thing is that at this whole time, we were having very strange experiences. We had UFOs that followed us. I remember abductions where they would be taking my brothers and sisters, literally taking them. And I just kept all of these things in my mind. And now that I'm much older, I've researched it and realized what they were doing. And it's very, very hard on the children who have suffered this, because by pushing them, what they do is they want you. The abilities only manifest when you're extremely, extremely pushed to the brink. That's when they manifest. They figured out if they can extremely push you to the brink of emotions, because emotions are the key, that's what manifests these abilities. If something extremely drastic happens to you, you have a rush of chemicals in the body that pushes you to have extreme abilities. Sometimes you hear of people who have lifted cars or stuff like that when there were really dangerous situations. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to train groups of children who, when they put them under extreme emotional stress, who would have these abilities eventually, and then they could go ahead and use these abilities. There are different ways that they use these abilities, that they access them. But initially, they only targeted certain bloodlines for this, because they know from a long time ago that it's within the DNA. I've come across a few other people like this, and sadly, most of them don't come out very well. It's very, very, very bad. They have very, very bad lives, and initially, some of them commit suicide. Some of them just can't cope with it. And I think the only reason that I did is because of the fact that I also have a very spiritual side. Within all this that happened to me, I have memories of different planets, and I will speak about Mars eventually, and the war on Mars, and the wars of the planets, which now it's coming out in mainstream news that there were wars on Mars nuclear. And I have all of these different memories and all of this different help from different beings because I am able to do outer body experiences or astral travel or walk dimensions. And then the thing is that all of these abilities were pushed. And I also believe that they were using people who can access this different stuff so that they could explore those levels. I know that I've accessed levels where just realms where the Nazis were, where they've taken all the energy from all the people that were harmed, and they were able to literally manifest themselves out of this realm into there. Somehow they were able to create a literal realm where it's still going on, and these realms are still happening right now.
I think what happens is they create pocket dimensions there through technology. It's not in the third frequency or the fourth. In between there, you can create pocket frequencies. And if we're thinking of the Third Reich or the Fourth Reich, which is the extension of what the Nazis are, in truth, that would perhaps be the 12th or the 15th Reich, because these Reichs have been going on for thousands of years. But they have the technology to create pockets in between frequencies where they're able to harvest energy using human beings.
And it's very, very hard. I had a friend, so when I was in the United States, I told my friend about this, and he meditates, and he's quite sensitive to subtle energies, and I told him about it, and he was like, I want to go ahead and try to access and see what's going on. And he's the head of a hotel. He's the manager of a hotel. And he's quite level-headed. And he has a lot of responsibilities. And it was very, very interesting because I told him about it. Then I went home. And he was just really interested in it. And then he calls me up frantically the next day, and he's like, listen, you need to come down here. He's like, I was meditating, and I literally accessed that pocket of reality or that dimension where their Nazis are and where they're still carrying out stuff. And he was telling me about it, and he was just terrified about it. And he had a very strange mark on the back of his neck. Then the police came. Then his other friend disappeared for a couple of hours. And I think the way we're able to access this, or the way I am, is through almost like tune in a radio and vibrations. So I can tune up or down. And I believe that the thing is that we are not aware of all of this stuff going on, and it's going on in these different frequencies, like when you tune a radio, and it's real. It's really happening on these other frequencies, and it's mirroring down into this world. It's mirroring down into 3D.
I think a good analogy would be if you tune the radio to 93.7, for example, you can hear that station going on, but it doesn't mean that 102.8 or 93.1 doesn't exist anymore. It's still existing in the same area. It's just that part, you're not tuned into that part. So the mind or the body is able to. We're all sort of tuned in right now to this particular room. So we're all collectively focused on this room. But that doesn't mean that there isn't other frequencies going on in covering the same space.
We'd like to think that, this is the only frequency that's going on, but it's not, and that's the problem. And until we decide to open ourselves up and we decide to acknowledge that we do have the abilities when trained, and everybody in the world has been programmed, most population has been programmed to think that this is the only frequency that's going on right now, and that this is all, which it's not. So they don't understand that there's higher and lower, and it's perfect for keeping everybody literally soul trapped here, because souls are energy, and they have a whole thing going on with literally raping the energy of the mass consciousness here on Earth in this realm. And they also are they're almost like using the many places I go or magazines I read, I always see a lot of stuff showing that the Nazis are still, like, there's that vibration still there, and it's quite close to ours. And there's a couple of other ones, but that one's one of the specific ones that I think that is going on right now, and that is causing a lot of havoc in this reality, this instant.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's just named, that the word Nazi is just named. Now we're using that word, but I think this particular stream of consciousness that we are now calling Nazis goes back pre-Atlantean times, and they've just incarnated into the same bloodlines over and over again.
Mm-hmm. So I think. Go ahead, continue on.
Okay, so why don't you talk some about most of the unfolding of events that are going on now is going on in the fourth frequency or fourth density, and then it sort of is put together in the fourth density or the astral realm, and then superimposed down onto the 3D realm, and then becomes manifest as physical reality. So it's almost now as if 3D is really not where you can make the changes happen. It's the higher frequencies, and they sort of fall down and then come to this pocket here.
Exactly. If I want to manifest something, I can go ahead and go into that frequency, create it, and then it will manifest here.
If thought is everything, like that chair wouldn't be sitting there had someone not had an idea or a thought to put it there, or had someone not had an idea to build that chair or put it together, it wouldn't be there. So thought is everything in that respect. And thought and imagination, or imagination, magi, so the magic or the creation comes from that area. So then it's built and done on the astral realm, and like I said, then it sort of trickles down and then manifests as the physical here.
By us?
Yes.
We do it
There's individually, but there's a collective. So we're all working as a collect. There is a like we're all in agreement now that that's a chair or no, that's a table. So there is that. But there. So it's all, we're all as a collective going like that. But within the collective, there are single individuals going around. So, I mean, in a sense, then that would make there is a sense of destiny going on in the what's happening now.
The problem is that they know how this works, and they know if they go do these things in the astral realms, then it will manifest here, and it will keep humanity in slavery, and that's exactly what they want. So the elite know exactly what's going on. I had an instance where I went to I think it was the Hilton Hotel, and it was Valentine's Day, and I was there with my brother, and we were just having a really, really good time. And I just noticed different pictures and the way it was made, the hotel, and I thought it's very, very strange. So I realized when I went to sleep that night that it was specifically set out for the elite, because most of the wealthy people that would stay at the Hilton Hotel, it was set out that you could literally access they have this whole thing going where you could just go out of your body and access it. And they were surprised to see me there. Then I just popped out there, and it's set so that you can go out of your body, because that's what they do. They meet outside. They don't meet here because it's too evident. They don't want to leave evidence around. It'd be too easy. So when I popped it there, I was like, oh, so I realized that this hotel is built specifically for the elite. So the elite who stay here can then just go, literally, because they can go out of their body. They have those abilities, and then they can go and join, and have meetings and stuff. So I figured out that that's how.
Certain restaurant chains and hotel chains are specifically used for that. So they're built on dragon lines or ley lines, where that allows an easier access to a pocket or a frequency area that has been built. So Hilton is one of the hotels. If you look, actually, the symbol of the way that Hilton is, the H has a snake's tail coming around, so it sort of like tells those who need to be there, who are appropriate to be there, where to go. Like with the road signs, we're told how specific road signs work, but there are multiple meanings to the road signs that will send you in a different direction if you knew what to look for.
You can continue on.
Okay.
I think I do want to speak about Mars and about the whole thing that's happening with children.
Okay, you go ahead. Yeah, you.
Okay, so I ever since a child, I have memories of coming through the sun, or the sun is a sun portal, and it's to block out anybody or anything that's trying to pass that hasn't gained enough energy. I would say that this universe is sort of like an energy bank. You either lose it or you gain it due to the nobility and everything else that you express in a very positive manner. And I'm very much against just love and light teaching, because I think it lets people be used and abused no matter what. But I think that there is a happy medium to this, and we should always try to act with nobility and dignity and kindness and everything else to others. And so I think the sun, the energy of the sun kind of blocks it. I've read stories where, a long time ago, they said that certain of the Nephilim was flying towards the sun, and they were nearly burned because they had done crimes against humanity. And there was a prophet who told them, turn around before you get burned by the sun, because you can't pass because of what they were wreaking havoc on earth. And it was a very, very interesting story. I think I read that, and I think it's the book of Enoch I read that. This is very, very interesting. So I remember coming through the sun and just traveling through different worlds. And all of the planets were inhabited. And there were great wars that went on. I would say they were angelic wars. I'll have to explain angelic wars, but they went on, and there was a lot of nuclear wars that went on, and Mars actually is just showing this, like I said a while ago. And I believe that somehow everything goes back to Mars. I've met people who I remember from Mars, and I was able to remember the memories of nuclear war going on Mars. They were highly advanced beings, by the way, and a certain group left, and they left apparently to Earth, and a certain group stayed behind to try, because there were some sort of blast that was going to happen, and they were trying to contain it. And what happened is the blast happened, and when it did, with nuclear, it goes throughout the dimensions. This is why nuclear is very, very dangerous for us, because it does not only affect 3D, it affects every dimension that there is. And this is why even some of the bad or more negative factions not want nuclear happening, because they are aware what happens with this. It literally creates a hole in space and time, and it is probably one of the most lethal things that humanity has. Well, these souls were these beings, because they couldn't die, because they were highly advanced, it mutated them. It mutated their very soul essence. And when they came to Earth, it was the line of royalty from what I believe on Mars. And when they came to Earth, they came into bodies here, and they're some of the controllers of the world right now. I was able to interact with a very prominent figure here, which I refuse to name. She's a queen, and I spoke to her quite recently because I needed to get some answers. And she explained to me, she said that for them to continue to be, that they had to steal energy or rape humanity of energy so that they would be okay, because their literal souls were not making the energy anymore. So they were in deficit. So they were... the reason we have so much child abuse that's coming out right now about children being molested or abused is because they're stealing that energy from those children. And they're doing it because they need it to survive or to be. And I think that the big thing is that when I did speak to them, that's not something that they wanted to do. And they were very interested in lighting up old DNA technology within our bodies and within specific people that could actually heal everybody, that would heal everybody, because nobody was meant to be that in the beginning. And I was explained how that they have to get the purer energy, and that's why children are targeted. I know this is very controversial with what I'm saying, because it is extremely evil to hurt children, but we need to understand that a lot of this stuff happens not because of simply it's just happening right now and these people are like this. It's because it goes back to thousands of years. It goes back to even different worlds of why we have these issues now. And humanity wants to live in the instant, of what they see. They don't want to accept all of the past, and all the past actually has the answers to what's going on now. As for children, they are being molested and raped of their life force because these beings need it. They can't feel emotions. They cannot feel any emotions whatsoever. They can kill you in cold blood and not feel emotions. In fact, the emotions they get are when they harm people. They can only get emotions when they harm people. And I believe that God's source energy is us being extremely sensitive to others. When I was in higher dimensions, everybody would just speak with emotions. And if they were all connected, and if anybody, because they travel around, if anybody started to feel, not well within themselves, they had emotional support that would fix them right away. And since it fixed them right away, they would not age. They wouldn't age because it's emotions that make you age. And what's happened now is that these beings, they lived once like that. They remember that. They miss it very, very much. And they definitely do the things that they do because of the fact that they're...
Who are we talking about?
The elite that are very abusive to humanity.
So this is only one
I'm talking about the elite that are definitely the ones who are abusing humanity.
There are lots of different streams. It's not just one.
But
right.
the consciousness I'm speaking about would probably be, which I refuse to name. I refuse to name it. I think it's better like that. It's definitely the major consciousness that's abusing children, that's raping humanity of energy. That's what I'm trying to get at. And I think that they want emotions so bad that that's why they're doing that. And hopefully with all of the knowledge that we have and with people who are waking up and remembering all of the old ancient technology, we can eventually light that back up and get rid of all of these issues.
Okay. So where do you want to talk about next? Where
I'm
are you?
thinking.
Can I just ask something?
Of course.
You're talking about the energy with humans. Would that apply to the animals?
Yes.
In a different way,
Yes.
because the animal...
Repeat the question because we can't cure that distance. Would that be okay?
Me repeat the
Question because we can't hear through your mic.
Okay, yes. The gentleman said, is it equatable, humans and animals, are they equatable in the same thing? I think that the acuteness of a human emotion, an extreme human emotion, is more beneficial to steal than perhaps an animal emotion is. So they still use that animal sacrifice or animal harvesting, but it's not as yes. And the animals all the animals on the planet are just extensions of parts of the human being. They're all extensions. So we all have all the animals residing within inside of us. They're just representative of different parts of who we are. So if you were to wipe out lions, then if you were able to wipe out lions on this planet, then you would take away the bravery aspect of the human being. Each animal represents a different part of the person.
The reason they prefer children is the fact that children's energy is pure, and that reminds them of the higher energy that they came from, because of the pureness of it. Now, when they do this to children, they're doing an energy exchange. And this is what really messes up the child, because they're taking the clean, innocent energy from the child, pure energy, so that they can briefly feel the happiness and the bliss and all the beautiful things that children feel, because they want to feel that extremely badly. And they're then putting their energy into the child, and the child will grow up and often be a drug addict and just be very promiscuous, won't be able to be in relationships. They'll have all sorts of issues, and I've seen it happen way, way, way too much, sadly.
Okay, Sarah, you spoke earlier about souls, etc., and energy, but the research that I've done, the ETs, and this is really going against the church and all religions, etc., and almost against ordinary people's thoughts and beliefs. But I'm under the impression that they are recycling souls. It's going on and on and on. And so it's not as if we we're given the impression that we die and we go to heaven, but our souls go to heaven and that our energy lives for more. But it looks like this is, especially what you said about the children, by recycling souls, you're then getting a continual supply of human body and human energy to keep the ETs, that's their main diet. Is that correct?
This is true,
Yes.
but it seems like they've done it for so long, and there's an amount of souls, and it's not unlimited supply, you know, of energy for them. So right now, this instant, I feel like they are in short supply, and I see so many people when I walk around that are absolutely drained, and I can see they have been fed on because I can see auroras and stuff like that, and
If I could answer that, if I could just answer that quickly, I think that what's happening is as soon as the body, in a regular death, as soon as the body, the soul leaves the body, there is some technology that is on the satellite that we call the moon, that is they then able to erase, recycle, and then put back into a new body. So you'll then have the same experiences again over and over, voiced with different people. But then, so they're able to keep doing that. And the Ouroboros, which is the snake swallowing its own tail, is symbolic of that. And continues over and over. Most of us in here keep doing it over and over again, but have no memory of it because the technology wipes the memory completely.
I did have an experience, by the way. I believe the moon is what traps the souls. I believe when death happens, they're drawn to the moon and then they're recycled. I did an astral travel once, and I decided to go all the way to Saturn because I know some things about Saturn from a long time ago, and I was going after some object because I go get objects, by the way, different objects that they have. And so I decided to go to Saturn. Now, when you astral travel like that, or I don't know, people say it's astral travel, I would say I just simply can go out of my body and access other dimensions. When I went to pass the moon, suddenly, it's, have you seen, you know, the album Prism? Well, anyhow, I went to pass the moon, and suddenly this beam hit me, and it sucked me into this small pyramid, and there were thousands of small pyramids on the dark side of the moon. And initially, it was trying to reprogram me and send me back to Earth. I guess, you know, it didn't know whether I was somebody who died or not. It just knew that it needed to reprogram me. So it started sucking me into this small pyramid. And I remember when it did, it was transforming me into like a rainbow, because the soul, by the way, it was like rainbow. And I remember I had to get out of there, and I got out of there, and it was, yeah, it's that. You know, I believe the movie Independence Day, where it has the large UFO, I believe, after researching that a bit, it's about the moon. You know, because you see it like come dark over the earth like that. And then in the movie Oblivion now, it's right out there. You know, that you've got the pyramid, but I also believe that's some sort of representation of the moon.
Is that true that Saturn is the council for this solar system?
Yes.
Okay. Saturn has been a hijacked planet. It didn't used to have a ring around it. It used to be the Earth's life force energy a long time ago. So the planet Saturn itself has been taken and hijacked now. So there's sort of Saturn itself, the planet, can be an extremely high vibrational planet or extremely low. So it's dualistic in its own nature. So Saturn is another way of saying Satan. So they use that word. So the frequency, the sounds and the frequencies that are coming off of Saturn, which are low vibrational negative frequencies, seem to be hitting what we call the moon, and then being amplified down and hitting the Earth, and creating the false reality that we're living in at the moment.
There's some sort of machine a long time ago that the Anunnaki lost control of, or they, in some sort of battle, I know that on Saturn, and there's a whole fight because the rings around Saturn are the projection of different realities or projection. It's very, very interesting. So it's like casting the projection. I was trying to add astral there to the machine. It's very hard to get to. This is sort of I think there's a video online I found of the never-ending storm with a hexagon or something. Yeah, so it's just like a machine.
Which is the hexagon is a cube, really. In a if you look at a hexagon three-dimensionally, it's a cube, which the cube that is around the planet is the cube of Saturn, which is the controlling force on this planet. It's your talk.
Somebody else had a question?
What do you think of the recently released movie, Jupiter Ascending? Have you seen it? Have you seen?
Yes, I have seen it. Reality, it's funny with movies, is because, and everything really, it's all saying the same story if you really decode it. It's all the same grid of the same story. And it's even, I would watch a movie and look at the commercials and then what came on next, and it was all connected. It was all saying the same story. I would say that Jupiter is extended. From what I understand, the 12 archangels were aligned to the 12.
I didn't see it, so I haven't seen the movie.
We haven't seen it yet, but from what I understand, because I did watch clips of it. Was it the 12 archangels that we got?
I don't know.
12 deities. I know one ruled each planet, from what I understand, or the most genetically advanced. Because, okay, if you take a group of horses, and this is just nature. If you take a group of horses in the wild, you always have the forerunners. You always have the ones who will break the rules, who are strong, who lead the packs. And from each planet, what I understand, it was seeded, and then you had the people or the beings who advanced very quickly. They became open to new ideas. They advanced very, very quickly, open in paths for everybody else, because it's like a domino effect with DNA. I think Jupiter Ascendant may be just about that, or the deity of that planet, or the being of that planet that was extremely advanced, and also the consciousness that advanced on that planet. I think that in movies right now, they're going towards a lot of sci-fi stuff. If you notice, it's the new big thing. Is a lot of sci-fi stuff, because people are waking up, so they want to see this stuff more and more and more. And it's funny because in each religious book, I think there's a lot of truth, because they're old sacred writings, and some of them are from other planets. People don't even realize this. It's just very, very amazing. And I think there's a verse in the Bible. It says that they have to tell you the truth no matter what. Well, they're telling you the truth a lot in fiction. They're just kind of laughing, because they're like, hey, we're showing you the truth. It's right here.
To get around the karmic issues of that, so they'll put the truth encoded or embedded within movies, so they can say, hey, we told you what's going on, and if you didn't pick it up, then that's your problem.
It's brilliant to hear you talking today. It really is.
Thank you.
Just on that note of the truth is there, but it's only if you've got the eyes to see it. And it seems that there is definitely a massive awakening. I mean, I woke up from a very mainstream conservative lifestyle to coming to see you today. It's a bit of a leap, but people are waking up. People are seeing things more clearer. People are talking, the internet, all sorts. But on that note, where do you see it going from here? I mean, we're seeing so much revelation now about child abuse, about, politicians murdering children. That is in the papers now. 20 years ago, we'd never have had that. So where do you see it all progressing?
I have my own idea about what, because there's a double cross going on with that, but I'm going to probably speak about that when I speak. But if you want to go ahead and say where you think it's going from where we are now.
I would say that that the truth will come out, and it's going to come out more and more and more, and nobody can help that. And I would say with the darker factions, there's definitely the ones who want to just be finished with this, and they want the old DNA technology to light up so that they can even heal the soul grids. And then, but you have the ones who are still fighting against it, because they're obviously terrified of it. And, it's a bit like, you've done a bad deed, and you have to kind of pay, and to show your sincerity, you're going to have to be put through tests, and they don't want that at all. They don't want the consequences for it. The thing is that I see it just going more and more and more. I think it's going to be the new thing. I think that Hollywood is going to flunk with all of their crap, and this is going to be the new thing, because so many people want to wake up. They're tired. They're tired of living everyday lives where they have to go to work and get paid badly. They're tired of how their children are treated at school. They're tired, so they want change, and nobody can stop change.
The problem is anybody externally that you can see as a ruler, anybody, any of the royalty, any of the presidents, prime ministers, if you can see them and you see them on mainstream television, they're not in control. So the real control comes from the shadows, comes from what you can't see. My concern was all these ones that we see out in public are expendable. They're all expendable. So to implement the new world order that they're trying to do, why couldn't they create it so that they get rid of all these ones that we see on face value, and then put the real ones who are actually going to be the deceptive ones into the position, and then re-screw us all over again?
That's one of their plans, but I don't think that it's going to play out how they want. They're just trying to keep the last strings of power, I think. That's what I think myself.
Yeah, otherwise why are people waking up at all? We could all just...
They can't,
They can't help it.
because the planet, the vibration of the planet is raising, and so that's why they're putting more and more pressure now, because they know, they already knew this was going to happen. This is the end of an eon now, and at the end of every eon there's always a window point where you can leave, and this sort of window point is coming up now. They don't want, they want to cull the population, but they want to keep enough, because they need us. They can't function without us. They don't have creative abilities themselves. We're the ones who are creators. They've hijacked our subconscious because we're creative beings, and they're using us to create the false reality.
So really, the power is in the hands of the people. They just haven't realized it yet. That's the thing. I think it's interesting because, I became interested in True Blood because it showed so much of under truth in there, and that was the end of it. They were literally, people were realizing that the vampires would not survive without them. So then the vampires had to make a pact, if you give me energy, I will help you. So it became more equal. And it's funny because that's what's exactly showing up in films and movies and stuff, because the grid of the universe is telling you what's happening, and nothing can stop that, really.
Sorry, can I just ask a question regarding...
Could you just hold on a second?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to just go back to Saturn, and that the cube represents Saturn. So are we talking places like Mecca where you've got the black cubes? They are actually worshipping Satan.
All Western religions Saturn worship.
Yeah, okay.
They somehow hijacked the sacred text and changed them into different religions, and then they're using them initially for pretty much the same worship. And it's really, really sad because the original writings weren't even meant for this. And you have to be open, and we can't just damn all of these writings because some of them have immense wisdom in them because of the fact that they were twisted by religions.
I believe that the majority of them are allegories, allegories and symbolic representations, rather than this is what happened, this is what happened.
Again, this is the problem with everything being taught that it's literal. That's the problem. People read these things and they think it's literal when actually they're not reading the hidden meaning of them because they're not accessing the frequencies of where they can see the hidden meaning.
Right, some very clever tricks been done. So they'll place a lot of the deities from the newer religions are actually just copies after copies after copies of old religions. So, for example, if you worship one particular deity and you're giving your power away to a specific deity in a church, you're actually not giving your power over to what you think it is. You're giving it to something else, which is then empowering the actual prison that you're in the first place.
I went to churches just to, access, because I can access the different energy in there and see what they're doing. And I went to this one, and literally, it was like a direct portal to Saturn. So some of the preachers they have direct connection to Saturn. So all the energy going forward to the pulpit from the people worshiping was going directly to Saturn, which is I call it the time machine.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you know, I've just got so many questions. My head's going to explode. But so far, I was just thinking, you've said we're at a new age. Apparently, this is going to happen anyway. It's the age of Aquarius. There's an enlightenment. People are waking up. But we're powerful, apparently, but we don't know it. Is that right?
Yes.
We've got power within us. We are creators. We've been hijacked. So, have we got any outside helpers, or is it really down to us?
Yes, you have a lot of outside helpers. That's the whole issue. I would think that everybody's here this instant. Everybody, from the lower realms and the higher realms, is. Have you seen the last movie of Thor? That's exactly what it explains. Where I come from, everybody had already left. All of the higher ones had already left to Earth, and it was a bit empty there because they.
You mean to incarnate into bodies
yes,
here?
Yes, to come here in bodies just so that they could go ahead and provide aid. But I'm also aware that some of the darker factions are just the same. I'm blessed with the ability to see beyond the projection of bodies, so I can see people who are ET or what I have to explain ET because I honestly ET it's very, very interesting for me because I'd like to say interdimensional beings rather than ET, and ET
because they're not extra terror, they're not away from terror.
This
it's more of a multidimensional issue rather than a spatial issue.
Right, again, people are looking for something literal. They're thinking the UFO can sit here like this laptop. That's not it. They're interdimensional beings, and so we're approaching it wrongly. You're not going to find it unless you create some high tech where you can see into the different frequencies. You're not going to get a literal UFO, and that's why those stories I think that people have are very, very, some of them are just hoaxes because of that. Because you're not going to get a literal UFO just right there, you know. It's not happening that they're flying around literally. It's throughout the dimensions. I like to call them interdimensional beings. I believe a lot of this ties to the higher angelic races. When I say angelic, I mean genetically advanced. Those beings who are very ancient and they advance, traveling through different universes and stuff like that. Yeah, you have a lot of helpers, and I think that everything is going to be okay in the end, and I think there's a lot of fair porn going out there, and there's a lot, again, like the Bible says, there will be rumors of wars and stuff like that, and I think it's to try to knock us off of our goal, and the best thing you can do to fight this is to be creative, to be healthy, you know, to do things like that, and just your creativity is something divine, so if you follow those sort of things, and it's not about getting out of society and living in some place in the wilderness. It's not that at all, because we're not going to change things like that. We have to do it on a happy medium.
Just one more thing. Before you talked about that terrible cycle of reincarnation that we're trapped in this grid, I think it's Wes Penra talks about. He said there's a way around that. He said that when you die, if you try and remember, think about, you'll see this tunnel of light and it'll draw you to the light. And he said that you should realise your own power and say, I want to go where I want to go and I don't want to go there. Do you think we could do that? We could escape that? Because this is going to go on for a long time, isn't it? It's not happening tomorrow, is it?
So I have mixed views on this, because I think that first you must try to wake up here, and as you wake up here, then you awaken the other dimensions. And you cannot just wait till the last minute.
There was a good saying, death is no cure for ignorance. So just because you die doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to be all wise and know everything.
That's the scary thing, though, isn't it? Because when you learn this, you think, oh, God, we're taught that everything will be okay. Once you're dead, you'll know all the answers and you'll see everyone.
It's such a trap.
I never used to be scared to death, and now I'm thinking I don't want to come back. I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a trap, you know, and that's what they do on these beliefs. They trap you. No, if you... Also, you have to realize, no matter what's going on, you still have a choice, and you still need to take that into your hands and wake yourself up. And it's about subtle energies, and I'm able to sense people's emotions. And sometimes I get severe anxiety because I can sense if somebody's upset at me. I just can sense it literally. And then I go to bed at night and I'll dream it. I can literally dream their thoughts. And it's like I said again, from where I come from, they communicate in emotions. Well, the thing is that we... See, I'm losing myself. I need to slow down. I need to take a deep breath now. We need to program ourselves here. We need to reprogram ourselves here because they have mass programmed us. So we need to program ourselves here. And as we program ourselves here to wake up and do different stuff like that, and of course it goes back to subtle energies, and that's why I think creativity is something amazing because it helps you wake up, helps you express. I do different meditations. I will lay down at night, and the parts of the brain that they say that are closed off because they've MK'd people so much in the world, I imagine energy and literally push energy there so that it lights up. And it does work, because when I was in France and my mom brought me to get a scan, the doctor told her that my brain was lit up in places that it wasn't normally. And this is what's allowing me to access other things. So no, don't wait till death. And no, I think that this is a bit of a trap teaching there, sadly. Thank you. I feel very comfortable.
Good. Just gonna grab my coffee.
I wanted to ask a question about attachments, like soul attachments, and whether that was to do with like draining energy from.
I'm sorry,
from
I didn't hear it.
I wanted to ask a question about soul attachments, and whether that was just entities trying to drain energy from you, or how you would go about getting rid of those.
Okay, so this is something that I try to explain to people a lot. Sadly, it can go different ways. I also think that it can go with something intimate with another person. You can get the attachment they have on them, which will then drain you. There's all different ways of picking up attachments. They definitely can be removed, but you have to want them to be removed, and you can't play games with that because they'll come back worse. There's a couple different ways of removing them. You can even... I went to this restaurant once, and I was eating some seafood salad, and I thought it was really healthy for me, And then I dreamed that night that somebody had enchanted my food with energy and did an attachment from the literal food I ate. So they're able to do that. And I believe that it happens in a lot of fast food restaurants because they have put very low vibration people, so that creates lots of attachments. There's attachments everywhere. So I think cleaning them out would probably be more of the focus, because I can tell you a million different ways they attach to you. Again, it's about becoming sensitive to subtle energies, and so that you can feel that. I can feel when somebody tries to access me on any level. I can feel it, and then totally like burn it or send it back to them and say, no, I don't want this.
They sort of come out like hooks too, outside, not the food thing, but for if somebody wanted... Say, for example, I met somebody here and I struck up a conversation with them, and in the conversation, emotions were invoked. Well, then, if this person had bad intentions for me, they would be able to hook into a certain area, depending on which emotion they invoked. If there was a heart emotion or a sexual emotion or whatever it was, they could hook in, and then even after you've left or away from that person, they are still able to drain energy from you from that way.
I think that's why the series The Walking Dead is so big in the United States, because they're after emotions. It's like the ones that are dead of emotions are like after the ones who still have emotions. That was something that I realized a while back, and it's extremely amazing of how popular The Walking Dead is, because so many people have become that. And once they feed off of that person so much, that person just closes themselves off and cannot feel anymore. And that's where we have the problem now with people who are killing people, because they're not having any emotions, and they know that there's something wrong with themselves. themselves. They're will desperately do anything to feel some sort of emotions.
Sorry.
Thanks, Matt. You commented that they discharge their karmic responsibilities by putting information into films, etc., and entertainment. You know, but obviously those are kind of hidden, and it's not an honest, direct approach.
No.
Therefore, I wonder, have they really fully balanced their karma by being, because they're being a little bit indirect? Have they really,
they haven't
balanced their
fully
karma,
balanced
or
their
they just think
karma.
they have?
But it certainly does give give them a window or a barrier to it, and it makes it easier because they are telling you in some respect. I need to pee. I need to leave.
I can continue taking questions if you want, and you can go do that.
Yeah, I'm going to go leave. Be back.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah. My name is Brian, and it's the first time I've been here. At the beginning of your conversation, and as you know, when you were in France with your brothers and sisters, it must have been a terrible experience for you, yeah?
I definitely had probably one of the hardest childhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's worse, but mine...
What I'm trying to ask you is that your experience of alien beings, or beings, whatever you want to call them, are we talking about one type of being? Because I noticed in your conversation that you went to say something, because I have no idea what these beings look like. We have all these visions of certain things, even the film you mentioned. I've got the film, on recently, Independence Day.
Which
Independence Day?
Independence Day,
yes.
when
the pilots are fighting, we had no deterrent against these aliens, and they opened up the cockpit, and there was some sort of being in there that wasn't very he wasn't very good to look at. Maybe they think the same about us, but what I'm trying to ask you, are you talking about one type of being? Are there beings out there? Are there other beings out there?
There's a lot of different, just like a radio tuning in, there's different frequencies. It's not it's just a bit like the world, we're all different. It's the same as that in a way. I've met all sorts of beings, including aquatic creatures.
This is what I'm trying to ask you. Is there one type of being we're talking about? Is there good and bad beings?
There are definitely black, gray, and white.
These ones that you've come across, I take it, in
all
your childhood.
Sorts.
But you have met beings that have got some good in them.
Oh, yes.
Because I'm basically hearing there's a lot of bad. Because I've had two experiences, one of my own, which was not scary, and another one that I had from someone. I had to think to myself, is this guy crazy? Or is he different to your experience? But this was told to me some time ago, about 10 years ago, and I had to come to the conclusion, was he crazy, or was he a normal guy? And he was a normal guy, and when I told friends, they took them in. I can explain it to another time, or maybe we'll talk later. But his experience is really bad. It was really scary.
Well, and
it changed his whole life. He didn't want to tell his families, people, even friends. He didn't. But why he told me, I have no idea. But my experience was quite something that my wife, I investigated, and I found it quite amazing that I actually believed that what happened to me wasn't scary at all. And my wife and my dog, my Alsatian, was there at the time, but it wasn't scary. It was something I said to my wife, and as we walked, it was quite amazing. I said, whatever I was looking at actually could read my mind. It wasn't scary at all. There was no fear there at all, from my experience. But I was basically asking, are we talking about one type of being that was abducting you and your sisters at the time? Your brothers and sisters?
So, again, this has to do with the nuclear war on Mars and what would be called the Archons or the Greys. And you know, so many people, I think it was like 80% of people have reported that they have, things have happened to them. It's on a mass scale. We cannot say that something is not going on when everybody's reporting this. It's not the whole world's not crazy, you know. And the thing is that for me, the Archons were humans, and when the nuclear blast happened, it changed them into those sort of beings, and they're doing tests on people to try to regain their old form. They would be fallen in a way, fallen angels, I believe, they would be fallen. They were once highly advanced beings that because of the nuclear war. It's funny because I had all of visions and all this information be given to me, and then it was like, I think a couple of days ago, I think I posted on my Facebook, I was just doing some things, and he put on the TV, and Doctor Who came on. And I don't quite follow Doctor Who. I mean, I like it from what I heard of it because it's interesting. And it was the episode with the Master, where there was these little like droids that came back at the Archons, and they were human beings. And it essentially was saying that the Archons were human beings who had fallen, you know, because of nuclear war and stuff, were coming back and trying to get access to this dimension. I think we're in a bit of a time loop, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. As for your friend, you know, I know when something's different, sometimes people can become terrified, no matter if it's good or bad. But I can tell you is maybe he did encounter a being that wasn't good, because I have encountered beings, and the good ones you always feel very happy, very at ease, very well. And the negative ones you always feel that there's something wrong. So
the concept of the question is that I was getting that feeling that your experiences have been, you know, you've travelled, but also they were scary.
Lots of beautiful ones too. Yes,
that's what I was trying.
That's why I can sit here.
Your experiences seemed to me that were, as a child and your children, you know, your sisters being abducted. I'm thinking, I'm getting this vibe that the beings out there of, you know, are not good for the human race.
That specific faction, but this has to go back to soul contracts. And I believe, from what I understand, a long time ago in my family, they did a soul contract that they knew certain beings would incarnate into the bloodline. So they gave over the rights, and it can go down 7 generations to allow us to be accessed. And this is what's wrong with the military. Whenever you sign a contract, it can go to 7 generations down over your children, you know, so that they can be accessed by whoever's working with the military, and it's definitely not good beings. And I think that's what was happening to me. At one point, I had an experience where this shaman came into my dream, and he started to ring these sort of bells, and he helped encode into my soul energy, into my aura, this vibration. And the next time that everybody got abducted, I was the only one that didn't. And ever since, I haven't been abducted. That's the thing. I've seen people, when I got to the United States, my friend, he got abducted, and I always thought that they were using him for some sort of test. And it's interdimensional beings again. I don't like using aliens.
Says you found your friend in the hotel.
Huh?
When you found your friend in the hotel, your friend at the hotel?
Yes, that wasn't the same person, but yes. And you know, he doesn't even remember that, because I contacted him a couple of months ago, and he doesn't even remember that happened to him. He doesn't.
This gentleman that I met, I had to come to the conclusion at the time, the story you told me was very interesting. I even took him home. And he was a big man, a man I've never met in my life before. Mm-hmm. And if I could tell, I've mentioned it to friends, some people make fun of it. And I had to sit down and really, was this guy crazy? In my mind, he was not crazy, but his experience, he told me at the time that he could never tell his children, he could never tell his friends, and he could never tell his family, because this went on for 20 years.
Well,
and if I could just... This went on for 20 years, and why he told me, I don't know, because a young lady friend of mine said I'd had experience. And through listening to the conversation, I tried to lighten his load, because my experience was not scary. But I didn't ask him. There were certain aspects of his story, and it's quite phenomenal. The actual story, it would actually really make you think about the whole concept of life itself, us being here, the whole world, the universe, everything. But I can understand when he told me the story, that how scared he was at the time. And why he told me, I don't know. But I remember taking this man home. I remember shaking his hand. I said good night. He was a big man, maybe Irish American, had a tear in his eye. And he said, "Thank you for listening, Brian." I said, "No problem." I didn't think no more of it. But I have told the story to friends. Some people take the mick, "Oh, he's just out the loony bin." Yeah. But he was of sound mind, and found him interesting story that I would maybe repeat to people at some time.
Well, I think that the negative factions always count on that everybody else will consider you're crazy once they have done things to you that are harmful. And that's the sad thing, because it really can make people lose it in the end, because they know what happened to them and they can't tell anybody, and even people they love, because people they love won't even believe them, sadly.
At the end of the story, there are like beings that are harmful, and there are beings that are...
There, like I said, there are white and black and grey and all in between, yes.
Thank you.
I know you're going to talk about the child abuse thing later.
Separate subject.
But obviously you touched on your childhood, Sarah, and it does sound very traumatic and isolated, and got your brain working at a certain level maybe. But in terms of the ruling elite farming human souls through the child abuse, yes, I completely understand that. But also, there's so much paedophilia that exists on an individual basis just amongst families. And so are those people part of that system as well? You know, fathers raping their daughters on a council estate. Is that the same thing?
Generally, these are multi-generational satanic families. So this has gone on for generation after generation after generation. This isn't the ones that when we're seeing in the newspaper are seemingly random paedophilic abuse. It's not random. This has gone on for generation and generation.
I think that was it Nicole Kidman's father or something like that before he died, or they found out something about that with him.
You can be sure thousands of years back. It's continued down the lines.
It is, and
from the start, so we can catch
Yeah, sure.
We'll make this the last
Hi.
question for break.
Yeah, all right. Nice to see you both. In answer to the question about with the paedophilia, we can understand it going back through generations of and timelines with the elite.
Yeah.
But what about the general public on housing estates where they got no link to past?
How would you know they don't have any link to it?
Yeah,
you don't. And there's a lot of these bloodlines that are hidden and put into other families and hidden under different names.
And I suppose over thousands of years it would spread out quite prolific.
Also, some of these negative beings can take control of the person's body, do it, rape the child of energy, then leave the person.
That's where I think they do step in as an attachment.
Yes,
and they use the body, and that's why most of them got no idea what they've done when they've come out of it.
Yes.
A lot of murderers are like that too. A lot of murderers are like that. They don't even, some of them don't even know what happened in the end, and that's exactly. I think there was a movie with John Goodman about that, where he thought he got a serial murderer, and then the same murder happened somewhere else, even though the guy was in jail that they thought, because there was the entity jumping from one body to another and doing the same sort of murder. So yes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.